Welcome in, Reanimated fans. This is Reanimated, the podcast about all things zombie, undead, moldering, and rotting in the grave. We were away for a couple of weeks for Thanksgivings and then ineptitude on my part, but we're back. I'm Stuart. Joining me on the East Coast is H.A. Conrad. How are you today, H.A.?
I am splendid.
Splendidly from New York area comes H.A. Conrad, and I'm in the drizzly West Coast, which is my favorite type of West Coast. I do love it when it rains. Oh, went weather too fast. We've got a lot of news. Hopefully, we're a week away plus from Thanksgiving now. Hopefully, everybody has had a pleasant harvest festival and are ready to tuck into some zombie content. Today, we are going to finish up Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, the anime, and we do have a little bit of news to get to before that. HA, did you see this article about the MCU Marvel Zombies, the R-rated show coming to Disney Plus that is so strange?
I did. And I saw like the whole article comparing Kamala Khan to like Frodo Baggins. Did you see that?
Yeah, like that's the quote from, I guess that's how the showrunners pitched it to Iman, what is her last name? Iman Vellani, who plays Kamala Khan. To me, the biggest takeaway from this article, not only is Kamala Khan's character going to be central to the Marvel Zombies show coming up, Iman Vellani seems to be just like Miss Marvel in real life. Like she's so excited that her character gets to interact with a bunch of other, in her words, like cool people,
Mm-hmm.
even though she doesn't even get to be in the same room as them. It's just going to be, she's recording audio, so are they, and her character gets to interact with cool people, and she's excited about that. I thought that sounded like, have you seen the Marvels?
I haven't, but I've seen interviews with her and all that stuff. So she is incredibly charismatic. So I think she's
Yeah.
quite suited for the role. Charismatic and enthusiastic.
And those are two qualities that she brought to the Marvels, which was an enjoyable film. I thought it's not amazing. No Marvel film generally is, but it was fun. I watched it on IMAX just because I had a day to kill in Nashville.
Nice.
Uh, yeah, it was fun, and
Oh
she
wait,
is
wait, wait,
so
wait. We're
adorable.
gonna take a little segue here. Did you have the hot chicken in Nashville?
I had the hot chicken my second night there, yeah, and it was
Did
it was
you repeat?
delicious. There was hot chicken everywhere, like you
Yeah,
couldn't. It
you
was hard
can't
to
avoid it.
miss. But yeah, I had a hot chicken, listening to live bluegrass, drinking an old fashioned. It was pretty much the most Nashville thing I could do.
That's kind of amazing. Sounds like a pretty good hang. But
Yeah, it was good. That was at Jane's Hideaway in East Nashville. If anybody's in the Nashville area and wants to do all three of those things at once, they have a pretty good hot chicken sandwich.
nice.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Back
No,
to
no, of course.
Kamala Khan.
Anyway, that's kind of it. It's the show's coming up. I don't remember when. It's coming though eventually. This should be here somewhere, but I don't see it.
All right.
2024, I think, is all we get. So that's Kamala Khan's news. We have talked about As We Know It, the film with Chris Parnell is, like, I think the only recognizable name in there. Do you?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's about a struggling writer in LA, break in the middle of a breakup and going through a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. So we will
That's
check
now
it out.
on
It
VOD.
just
It came
released
out yesterday. Yeah.
yesterday, so maybe we should take a peek and see if it's worth reviewing, right?
It's Yes, it should certainly be on our list. There's not a whole lot out there.
Right. So why
Um,
don't maybe we do that for next week. Um, and then in your wheelhouse, there's the Walking Dead role-playing game.
this I kickstarted on Kickstarter. Um, it was developed by Free League Games, or Free League Publishing, and I got my copy a couple of weeks ago. And it is a D6 based game, so six-sided die, a lot of storytelling, a lot of like theater of the mind, although it comes with maps of like the greater Atlanta area. It comes with like different archetypes of character, like student, or not student, kid, doctor, soldier, and the sort of different things that they bring to the table. I'm trying to get a game going with a group of people who I regularly play games with, and it's as usual. It's taking a while to find that scheduling. But once I've gotten it to play it, I'll report back. But it's so far so good. In the game, you can interact with people from the show. If I ever game master a session of this, I'll make sure they interact with Heath because
Uh,
I'm always trying to figure out what the hell happened to him. Uh,
Everybody is. Wonder if he enjoys all the mystery. It seems like he must.
yeah, I'm sure. That one, I don't think he's been interviewed about it much. What's that dude's name again? I forget.
I don't remember, but he's amazing.
Um, anyway, so yeah, Walking Dead, the role playing game, is now out, and it's getting some mixed reviews, but so does everything. So wouldn't take too much and put too much lot in that. And speaking of lots,
Whoa.
CBR reports on a tweet from Stephen King about the Salem's Lot remake, which was supposed to come out in 2022 and then 2023, or maybe it was 2021 and then 2022. Either way, this movie has not come out. It was done a long time ago. It was shot in 2021. That's right. So it was scheduled for a 2022 release. Never came out. Kind of fell away from the release radar. And now Stephen King is tweeting about it, saying
It's great.
it's muscular and involving. It has the
I don't
feel of
know.
old
I,
Hollywood.
if you recall, there was a lot of, yes, it was finished, but there was a lot of like discussion about whether they were re-editing it and such things. So,
There were discussions of that, and now this article seems to say that yeah, which I think is BS. They're like it wasn't because of the quality of the film, it was because of the SAG-AFTRA strike, which started way after this was supposed to be out in
I don't
theaters.
think so. I think that is a little bit of a
But
cop.
SAG-AFTRA has now generated all this extra demand for original streaming content on Max.
So maybe there
Sure.
is more of an audience for it. I don't know.
How do they recoup, like, how does that help them recoup their costs other than just saying like, oh, we've got great movies on Max and maybe they'll see
I
a slight
think I
uptick
think
in subscriptions? But
I think maybe it's that I am a little worried about what this actually is going to be like, based on those earlier comments, and I do feel like this is potentially a um, let's just see if we can put it out there because there's nothing else out there, and so nobody's going to notice how bad it is. But we'll watch it. We'll see.
yeah,
I, you know, so we'll have to see what it's like. I don't know. So put a pause in that, see what happens. But yeah, and they didn't give a date though. So again, we'll have to see what actually happens with it. It said soon, right?
it's yeah, there's no release information.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't really understand where CBR got this idea that they're going to go straight to streaming.
Hmm.
No decision has been made about the film's future distribution plans, is what there is the statement they got from Warner Brothers. So they are totally making this up.
Hmm.
So, well, I think it's reports indicate is what they've said. So they're not citing their source. Maybe that just means that somebody on the inside has gotten in touch with CBR and been like, by the way, coming to Max. Either way, we'll keep on waiting for this movie that I was only kind of like a 5 out of 10 excited for to begin with. It's like teasing it doesn't make it better. Last Train to New York, I would be more excited about, but that has literally disappeared.
Yeah.
Nobody's even talking about it, which is strange.
Yeah.
Okay, but moving on from the strange plight of zombie films, we can go into the strange plight of Akira Tendo and his friends,
Right.
finishing off this saga.
Um, and there is like like there is another episode apparently coming out on December 25th or 23rd or something. So just heads up about that.
Uh, really though?
Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, we'll wrap this as we see fit. Maybe we'll do an epilogue at the beginning of one of our other
No,
shows.
I'd be okay. I'd be okay not epiloguing this
Okay,
show.
great.
Not
You
to not to show my hand too early in the discussion, but
we're gonna both show our hands, all four of them. Um, so this is, and I should say, I think one of these episodes we didn't, were we able to actually, there was one that didn't, there was like an odd numbering, so
yeah.
so anyway, but it just, for me anyway, it kind of went off the rails in a kind of weird way, I guess. You know, like this is a little bit of an anime thing,
The
but I
storytelling is just all over the place.
yeah, and I
Like
mean, I think
yeah, they needed an editor, and I think this is like pretty edited from the web comic or the manga. I think
yeah,
it's tighter than that, but also it yeah. Like to me, the story arc for Akira is he confronts Kosugi and then he goes off and does something else fun. So I guess if I have an issue with these three episodes, it's the Beatrix one. Like she's unnecessary to the plot.
right, and just kind of weird, and the whole thing is a little weird and not really up my alley, admittedly, but
Well, so we the truck stop of the dead is episode 7. That's the one we're gonna start with.
yep.
And it's a lot of Shizuka is kind of like drives a lot of the dramatic plot forward, I would say,
Hmm.
in her big speech at the end and in her thoughts bubbles that you're getting to witness of her childhood. She has been a very serious character. She's that pragmatic one.
This gives a little bit of her backstory though, where
Yeah.
she had a pretty abusive and controlling father, and really kind of like dark flashbacks to her history, um, where like he like kills her pet dog off
Yeah.
screen, but even so, it's
Yeah.
pretty upsetting. And so they give you some motivation for why she acts the way she does, and they revisit this in one of these later episodes too. But basically, she gives Akira the motivation, or the, I don't even know what to say, the pep talk, I guess, um, to get him to stand up to his old boss.
Because what's most disturbing is that Kosugi has managed to persuade Akira that he wants to stay and keep working for him.
Right.
Because after, screaming at him for a few scenes for being like a bad worker, he then suddenly does this 180 and is like, you know why I yell at you or I'm so hard on you is because you remind me of myself and I know that you could be a great worker. And why don't you just stay with me? Don't go off with your friends. I'll keep you safe. Wouldn't you rather just not think about what you have to do all day? I'll tell you what to do. Um, and it's the first time we've seen Kosugi speak to anyone this way. So it is like kind of interesting. I'm not sure how persuasive it would be, but Akira is clearly like not in a good headspace.
Right. And very vulnerable to this because he's kind of like, I mean, essentially, it's a person who's been abused going back to the abusive situation because the abuser is like, I wouldn't say showering him with gifts, but it's giving him this other kind of like affirmation. But it's definitely false affirmation because really he just needs, I think he realizes he needs Akira to stay for a few other reasons. In part because he gave him like a good idea about, the beer and motivating the rest of the group, but also I think there's certainly like a power play here too. Like he wants to dominate him and show that he can dominate him. And so he's willing to go to any means to do that.
Not sure
Um,
why he needs to dominate Akira when he clearly has like a whole posse of people he's dominating already, but
well,
sure.
I think agree, but I guess that's where they're going with
Yeah,
this. Um,
that's the choice they're making.
yeah.
Yeah. Um Kensho's not really in this storyline. He also is clothed for this entire episode, which I think is the first time.
Yeah, it
He's
doesn't happen again. He gets naked everywhere else, I think.
he's definitely naked in episode 8 after
Yes.
when we get to the next one. Um so he's just kind of recovering. The RV has been fixed up after getting all of its tires punctured by Kosugi's crew.
Hmm.
This is what I really also dislike about this, and it's something that you see as a trope in a lot of zombie stuff. It's like, oh, we saved you, now you owe us. It's the whole like Atlanta hospital plot line with Beth.
Hey,
Uh, and nobody ever calls Kosugi on this. Like, you fixed up my truck, but you broke it in the first place. Like,
oh,
screw you, man.
yeah.
That's clearly not something that we're focusing on. Not even Shizuka when she yells at him. Uh, it's also worth noting that a couple of the salvage guys who were out on a run are already talking about how Kosugi kind of lets everybody else do all the work.
Yep.
You know, and then they managed to bring a zombie back to the camp with them, which plays a significant role later on. But this episode goes by fairly quickly. Like by the time you get to Kosugi and Akira telling his friends that he's not going to go with them, it feels like it's the end of the episode already.
I know.
But then Shizuka is about to leave him behind, which I was like, I don't understand this. You've been showing us all these flashbacks, but it's like that. I think it's just an anime thing where she has to change her mind at the last second and make her fists and then yell at Kosugi, but really she's yelling at Akira, and
Right.
then she makes it all about her. It's such a strange way of writing dialogue.
Yeah.
And Akira, well, when he sees that Kosugi's about to step on his bucket list is when he like throws himself in the way and then gets up and says, I'm not staying. I'm not going to pay you back. And sorry about that, but not sorry. And that's when the zombie breaks out. And then Akira saves everybody with his plan, which is insane.
Yes. It's a pretty I don't know, a
That's on brand. It's
pretty
pretty
far,
on brand for him.
but it's on brand. And the other sort of captives, whatever you want, whatever you want to call them, are like, Akira is better than him, but is a better leader. It's like, okay, thanks for that revelation. But yeah, but the feeling of this episode, I agree. Like, it kind of feels like this would have been the last episode, right? Because
This would have, well, you could do one more after this where he goes to find, like, if you just skip episode 8,
right,
I think
that one's
that would
very
have been
weird.
okay. That would have been that sets up for the next season.
Yeah. The,
But
the thing I think though about episode 8 is that it's the essentially the grocery store shopping
in a
ish.
way,
It
yeah.
like that. It's the sort of silly, lighthearted interlude
But
before the heavier stuff happens.
that's what this whole show has been, though, is silly, lighthearted,
I
like
know.
no real stakes. The fact that Akira is persuaded that he won't survive the apocalypse by Kosugi is funny just because he has never really even considered not surviving the
Right.
apocalypse before he was with Kosugi. Like,
Right.
even in the face of all these stupid things he's done, was never even a consideration. And the show certainly never made it feel like his life was in danger. He's just like kind of goofed his way through.
Hmm.
Another really funny sort of, not haha, but silly element of episode 7, Truck Stop of the Dead, is the final moral being delivered by Shizuka in the RV as they drive away. When
Hmm.
Akira's like, I don't know if I'll ever find a job that I can do or that I'll be good at or that I want to do. And her response is, cool new jobs like drone pilot, influencer are
I
being
know.
invented all the time. Yeah, just do something you like, and eventually you might be able to make money doing that. And I'm like, it's the zombie apocalypse. What are you
I
talking
know.
about?
What are you talking about? I know. It was kind of weird, but I thought it was honestly like a tongue in cheek
It's like
comment.
talking to the marginalized people who are reading the manga,
Right.
I guess, but it doesn't make any sense in as dialogue in this show. Well, except for the fact that they've never really treated the apocalypse like it's a real thing.
Right.
It's just so silly. And then episode 8 begins, Sushi and Hot Springs of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so this is like they introduce a new character, Beatrix, who is I don't know what you would call like somebody really into Japanese culture, but she's German, and her big thing is that they find her trying to like deliver a last shipment of sushi grade fish to the best
Maybe
uh
the only.
maybe the only sushi chef left in Japan. And suddenly, like, like many things, Akira like gets really just excited about this idea, enthusiastic about this idea, and agrees to help her. And reluctantly, I would say, I mean, Kencho's kind of like up for anything, but Shizuka is skeptical and annoyed. But they do eventually join in the fun. And they almost get surrounded by these zombies. Like their plans kind of like go off the rails, but Shizuka like has a drone distraction plan, so it gets all the zombies away from the truck. But one of the things about the Beatrix character is that they have this sort of thing that she does where she'll start spouting off all these facts about Japan, and they speed it up so it's unintelligible, but basically she knows more about the history of Japan than any of the Japanese characters do. And so that's one thing about her. And then ultimately they all get to find this they get to the sushi restaurant and have basically the last meal of sushi in Japan that's possible. And I will say it made me want to go out and eat sushi.
Most so much.
It really, like, even the way they're describing it, I was like, oh, that looks so good.
Yeah.
So so maybe I'll have to do that. But I think the fact that it's like a rarity and the last time they're going to get to eat that, that's like very much focused upon. And then, the next piece of like sort of like not thinking about survival, but thinking about the pleasures in life is like the hot springs thing. That I mean, I think they should have known that there would probably be like
There
zombies
was
there.
there was the multicolored zombie blood all over it.
Right. Like, I don't know, that seemed weird. And they're seeking out life's pleasures at this point in this episode, and
And they're
so
trying to see Beatrix naked. Like,
they are, but it's not, I don't know. And that's kind of, it just did not really resonate with me. I found it a really kind of
because
awkward.
you're not a 12-year-old boy, H.A.
I
Conrad.
know, I know, but it was really awkward, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about this with anime. Anyway, um, I shouldn't have. It's just been a while. And anyway, it's just like kind of a throwaway episode. The whole theme of this episode is about like people being naked in the hot springs, and like
Yeah.
that was, and so there's like the end of the episode where they find an like kind of a natural hot spring in the mountains, and there's this whole Akira Shizuka like revelation where she shares like her past. And I like, I thought that was an okay moment. And I do like, I mean, I thought some of the artwork with like the night skies were really beautiful and things like that. But then they just kind of like, any kind of like normalcy in that moment is ruined because Kensho and Beatrix decide they want to be in the hot springs, and then it just all kind of goes to heck
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So
Shizuka also sort of expresses her feelings for Akira here, although she immediately recants. It's
yep,
it's kind of like cat's out of the bag. So maybe something else will happen between them down the road,
yep.
but we
Um,
will not find out because it's episode 10 time. Also, just for the record, Kensho was naked a lot in this episode. They had the weird
oh, I mean,
squiggle
I think
squiggle over his butt.
oh my
And
gosh, I think it was almost continuously in this
yeah,
one. But they make up for it with his very loud clothing in the next episode.
his
So
loud clothing.
he had some pretty like outstanding ensembles in this one. Like he had the I guess I didn't notice before, but his nonsensible shoes for mountain hikes were pretty much highlighted, especially at the beginning of the episode. So
Well, this
uh
is Treehouse of the Dead.
yep. Oh, sorry, maybe it's the middle of the episode rather, but he's like in this like kind of weird like bright city ensemble, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
deliberate to make him kind of stand out as a city boy in the forest. But
He's just flashy.
yeah.
This episode starts with Akira saying some really nasty things to his dad, who's a farmer, because he's about to go off to college in Tokyo. It might be the last time they spoke.
Yeah, it's a
Uh, and,
flashback.
and his dad is saying, I forget exactly what he said, but like, be careful out there in Tokyo. And Akira is just like, what do you know? You're a farmer in the countryside. And then boom. And
Yep.
then he's feeling bad about that for the rest of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the fact that he feels like he hasn't done anything for his parents in the last 3 years. But honestly, like to be fair to himself, he also hasn't done anything for himself in the last 3 years. His
Right.
apartment was a disaster. His life was a shambles. Uh, but yeah, he's still feeling bad. Um,
And in the midst of this reverie, they rescue this older man, uh, and who is just randomly being chased by a zombie boar through the forest. And Beatrix takes down the zombie boar.
a little bit Princess Mononoke
Yep,
feeling.
very
Yeah,
much. And uh, the man Kumano shows them all his project in the woods, which is a treehouse, and suddenly Akira is totally enthusiastic in a kind of like manic way that he wants to help build the treehouse. Apparently, this was sort of a dream of his.
yeah.
And this is an odd, like, again, like kind of an odd interlude, but also like kind of fun in how they're building the treehouse. And, I think that the man is obviously like a stand-in for his own dad. And also he lost his son and his wife to the zombie apocalypse. And so it's like kind of interspersed. The treehouse building scene is interspersed with his like sage advice about treehouse building and forests and somewhat of a philosophy about trees showing the way.
Well, it also goes back to the beginning of episode 8, where Aki was like, my new goal in life is mindfulness. And then they're all doing yoga on surfboards on a
Yeah,
river at like the
yeah.
cold open of episode 8 or 9, rather.
Aboard
And
yoga.
now he decides that he wants to like focus on be aware of himself and the people around him, and through that gain awareness of the entire world,
The universe.
in the universe. So he decides he wants to be like he finds mindfulness in hammering nails, and he also realizes that he really wants to go see his parents.
So
Uh,
when you build tree houses, Stuart, do
hmm.
you meditate?
I'd never meditate when I'm doing DIY because I'm usually hitting my thumb or cutting
That,
myself or
that's what I was
putting
thinking. I
nailing
was
something to the
like,
wrong thing and then having to redo it and cursing and sweating. That's more of my style.
I was thinking that I would be very bad at this. I
Yeah.
think I would just destroy my hands, because I'm just terrible. My hand-eye coordination, not the best. So, but they do build a pretty cool treehouse, including like a slide. Although, was the slide between two levels or down to the ground? Because I didn't think that was a very good plan.
To make a ramp
It-
for zombies.
yeah.
I think it was between two levels.
Okay. Otherwise, it's pretty cool. And Shizuka and Beatrix are really psyched about some canned food they're eating. It's like a delightful little interlude with lots of sparkles.
So here you have your delightful shopping interlude. Like you don't need episode 9 again.
No, you don't. And this is probably more in line with it. I mean, it's a very like sort of fantastical
Yeah.
little sparkly interlude.
Everybody's just happy, and this is like where Nakira's realizing how at peace he is and how much he likes everybody that he's with, I think, too.
Yeah.
And
Um,
then but then they leave. He's like, well, I guess I gotta go see my dad or my parents, and so gotta go. They go over the narrow ledge, they go over a rope bridge. This is like a very remote area.
yeah, and what's
And
interesting here is that Akira, who we saw especially at the beginning of the series, was very just like I wouldn't say incapable, but this is like a surprising aspect that they're revealing about him. He is absolutely not bothered at all. Like the rest of them are sort of like hugging the cliff wall because it's like it's an exposed mountain path that they're trying to get over on. They're all like upset and complaining and stressed out, and Akira is just like, yeah, this is like the way home. And granted, it seems like Kensho has like pieces of the path crumbling and like the little rope bridge, like a piece of the board gives way when he tries to walk across it. That's not happening to Akira.
No,
Um, but
it's funny.
it is very much a thing like, oh, he grew up with this, so it's so natural to him. But this is an unexpected piece of information about him that he grew up in this very remote village and so is very comfortable with all the ways of the, hiking
Yeah,
and like because it's just natural to him. And then there's also definitely a commentary on old Japan or living in the country versus the city, like the idyllic life of country living here. They all like everybody's commenting on it. It's like, oh, and they continually say this is like old Japan, right? So that's interesting. That this is this idyllic kind of existence, but yet all of them lived in the city. So a little
hmm.
bit country mouse, city mouse kind of a philosophy, I suppose.
It's an easy contrast to draw, especially when coming from where they've been.
Right.
Uh, so, but they he has his reunion with his parents. They're all in a hut where most of the people are dancing in their underpants,
Yeah.
singing about beer and
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and Akira gives a weird speech about how selfish he's been, and his dad hits him on the head and says, don't be stupid," and goes out to work. Like it's a pretty weird vibe. Akira then tries to just help his mom a lot, and they're put up in an empty house. Apparently, they kind of get the speech that there were a bunch of people from the city who were trying to come. They blocked off the tunnel, but now there's still people from the city who are staying in the village.
And are
And
delighted to contribute to the country village existence. Like they're,
right,
with the food and everything and you know. Um
it feels ripe for some sort of problem. Yeah, with this contrast of city life, country life, because now you've got a bunch of city people who, in the short images that they showed, they weren't working; they were just kind of sitting around.
right. And
Uh, yeah,
Akira is really trying to show his parents that he's grateful and repay them for all they've done. His mother rebuffs him, but his father asks for his help after kind of giving him a gruff welcome. And they have an okay interaction, but his dad apparently has a secret he's hiding, so
don't have
that
much time left.
no.
I don't know
He
what that means. I don't know where that blood came from.
apparently he has according to the online things, he has a bite that he hasn't been showing anybody, so
Oh boy.
but I don't think that that was completely obvious. And then it segues into this whole narrative about basically the anti-Akira group, the anti-Akira with his own bucket list.
Very Shaun of the Dead.
Yep, and his own group of people, and instead of their sort of somewhat wholesome and lighthearted bucket list items, they want to like bomb everything and like set the city on fire and do horrible things to other people. So,
Forced their
um,
tongues into other people's mouths.
yeah, it's pretty upsetting, their bucket list. It's like really dark and evil, and some of it involves domestic abuse, which is pretty upsetting. And
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure that whatever episode that they reveal in December may be a continuation of this. But this is kind of where it ends, is this sort of like, I don't want to say cliffhanger, but I think that it's setting the table for obviously a conflict between these two groups at some point. So
Yeah. It was kind of weird that the Bizarro Akira had sharp teeth. Is that like an anime art choice that I don't understand?
yeah,
Is that like instead of the goatee,
yeah, it's a little bit because I think that because otherwise without the sharp teeth, if you noted, he looked exactly like Akira.
different hair?
So
Yeah.
I think that he's basically the anti-Akira, and so that's the way I guess to denote it. But the sharp teeth look pretty rough.
Yeah, and his
Kinda-
beef is he's also an outcast, but insofar as he never joined corporate culture, and he feels like he didn't belong in Japan pre-apocalypse, but now he's out for revenge, and he's found like-minded group of cronies. So it's pretty weird. Um, that's kind of where it ends, and what a trip.
Yep.
It was just like
Um,
3 episodes too long. I feel like this could have been like a 4 episode cartoon arc, you know?
yeah, and I could have, I mean, I know it's anime and whatever, but I really could have done without a lot of the, you know, misogyny and kind of the the very just obvious, I don't know, I guess, I mean, look, I get it. It's part of this thing, but I guess I wasn't really fully prepared for it. Just how endemic it was throughout the series. But in terms of like, themes and things like that, I mean, I thought it looked great. I thought that especially the first episode I thought was a little bit like I thought it was setting it up for to be something slightly different than it ended up being. But I think had you cut out the sushi slash hot springs episode and maybe even the second one with where Akira is sort of being held somewhat captive by his boss, I think that it probably would have been a tighter show.
Mm-hmm.
Is that or would those be the two that you were thinking too?
I
Or
would probably have cut all
oh,
that storyline about Club Showtime. What was that even about? That guy never
yeah,
even came back.
and they never went back to it. And
But
also the TV the one where
yeah,
they kind
Flight
of get
Attendant of the Dead, unnecessary.
that was unnecessary too. Even like
Hero of the Dead and RV of the Dead kind of got him together with Shizuka. So those were okay. Truck Stop of the Dead was like the main story arc.
yeah.
Yeah, Sushi and Hot Springs could be cut for sure. So I think there were a couple of episodes that you could just cut easily. Um, but the first episode, I agree with you, was absolutely the best. Like,
Hmm.
but it's what's ironic is like that's not the tone of the rest of the show. That's this like serious and depressing tone. Uh, but for whatever reason, that was better. And even though you're happy when Akira is like all free spirited and wild, like that's a good thing. It's just I think something about the way it was put across didn't really work for me in the long run. But that's it. That's Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, the anime series. There's still a movie out there that we need to talk about and watch. HA. Well, it'll be interesting to see how they approach so much of this abstract nature of this show.
Do you want to look at that, or did you want to do this other new thing that just was released?
I would like to get all of the Zom 100 out of the way.
Okay, so you want to do
Yeah, let's come back and finish the movie. No?
all right, we can do that. All right,
Yeah.
so we'll do the movie for next time.
There's also a new vampire movie on Netflix called Dampier, which I've been looking at.
What's it called?
Dampier. Is it Dampyr? Yeah.
Oh, like a Balkan one?
Yeah, I guess. Uh, except that this looks like a pretty international cast.
Hmm.
And Last Voyage of the Demeter must be coming around to streaming at some point too. So we've got a few vampire things that are still out there that we haven't talked about. But yeah, I think next time let's talk about the movie Zom 100 Zom Buckets.
All right, well let's do that.
So
So do the live
let's
action one.
yeah, we'll do the live action one. Um, I know this definitely wasn't our cup of tea. I think I can say that for both of us. Can I say that for both of us?
Yes, you may.
All right. But we are committed to watching all things zombie. So tell us what you thought. Did we get it all wrong? Did we get it right? Let us know. You can email us at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can find other episodes of the podcast online at reanimated.podbean.com. And I hope you will. So give us a holler. And we'll talk soon. So for Stuart, I'm saying toodaloo.
Ciao. Until next time. Thanks for listening.